For a while now, I've been tempted to play Expedition 33. I know it's a very critically acclaimed game. I've heard about it in the comments when I was talking about stuff about Silksong. I've heard about it on stream when I was playing games. So I figured, okay, it's a very well-received game. It's only fair that I give it a shot before I make my pick for Game of the Year. So after some consideration, I decided to play it. I bought the game, I booted it up, and I played for about 2 hours. I couldn't do much on stream just because I had stuff to do that day, so I didn't have much experience going in. But in that hour and a half that I played it on stream, it just did not hook me as well as I thought it would. Now, I didn't want to be harsh on this game, so on my own time, I played it again. I went off and did a bit more stuff. I played for about 2 or 3 hours, and I still couldn't find myself enjoying it. It kind of felt like I was forcing myself to play a game, which is very rare for me because I love playing games. I think there are a ton of good games that I can spend hours on, but this is just one of those games where I can't actually enjoy it for myself. Now, I'm not saying the game is bad. I think the art direction that they had is very incredible. I think the team did an amazing job. It's a very small team, but they did a really good job with the game. The music is amazing. I know one guy did it and he did 8 hours of soundtrack by himself, which is very impressive. So credit where credit is due. And visually, it just looks stunning. I can't fault the game for anything like that because they put so much effort and detail into things that it almost feels like you're in a movie. It's an incredible game. I can see why a lot of people liked it, and I know people are saying that it's a narrative masterpiece and the storytelling is great, but for me in particular, I just could not find myself liking the story. I know it's supposed to be like a tragic tale. It's a very French style theme, and after a while you can kind of see where the narrative is going, and it's obviously going to be very depressing, and there's nothing wrong with that. There are some games that I've played that have a really sad narrative. Take for instance Nier. That game is a very, very sad tale. There's almost no good things that come from that game, and it's one of my favorite games of all time. But for some reason, I just could not find myself getting hooked on the story. Now, there are a few things that contribute to this. One being that whenever I play games, I like to have that form of escapism. I don't have to deal with the struggles of real life, the tragedies that occur in reality. And I know that this is the narrative that the game is trying to do. I can see that. Because the beginning, it looks like really stunning. It looks like a very happy scenery. And then once you get to the main part where the game actually starts, then things start to take a downward turn. You kind of see where things are starting to head towards. And it's a very serious game. So I will obviously take the plot seriously. But for a lot of times, whenever I was taking it seriously, I just couldn't find myself getting hooked. Not to say that serious games should not exist, there's a ton of them that do, and they have a lot of good themes, but just the themes of this one didn't click with me. So there's that. The other thing I noticed when I was playing the game is for a good chunk of the beginning, it is a lot of cutscenes. It felt like I was watching a movie with little bits of gameplay in between. Now, I'm sure that when the game goes by later on, you start to get into more aspects of playing the game a lot more. There's not as many cutscenes as there is in the beginning, because I know they're trying to set things up. But the thing I typically enjoy whenever I'm playing a game is that they don't focus too much on the cutscene narrative. They just implement that kind of stuff into the game as you play it. So stuff like regular combat, exploration, you kind of hear bits and pieces here and there as you progress rather than it all being played to you for long periods of time. So that was something that kind of put me off. And like I said, it's not a bad story, it's just not for me. The next thing I want to talk about is the gameplay. It's your typical JRPG style game, turn-based mechanics, but they do add elements that are very different from the normal ones, like dodging and parrying. I know everyone says the parrying is kind of similar to playing rhythm games, and the dodge mechanic to real-time combat is very reminiscent of Souls-like games. Now, I am a bit biased. I am not the biggest fan of Souls-like games. I've tried games like Elden Ring from time to time, and I've just dropped the game every time because I just did not find myself enjoying it. So I was already going in with that bias, knowing that. And I've tried multiple times to get myself into that mindset because a lot of people really like it, but like I said, it's not for me. And I do like JRPG style games. I like turn-based, but I think the way I like JRPGs a bit more is just that there's a certain element in there that a lot of these games have where you're trying to predict what the enemy is doing and you're trying to prepare yourself as best as you can. So getting as much damage output as you can and hoping that you won't die. That's the gist of how I like JRPGs. With this mechanic, like the dodging and the parrying, it kind of takes that element away. I know it's supposed to be a bit more fast-paced and more skill involved, and I can respect that. There's nothing wrong with that. It kind of just took away the strategic element for me. So that's why I didn't really like the gameplay all that much. It just felt kind of boring to me. I know it's a bit harsh to say, but that's just how it is. I'll be very honest whenever I talk about stuff like this, so take that with a grain of salt. Now, just to reiterate, it's not that I think the game is bad. I don't think that. I think it is a very well-made game. I think the way that they did things was very well directed. There's a lot of mechanics that go into this kind of thing, but it's not for everyone, and that's perfectly fine. I think the one thing that always gets me a little bit cautious going into games like this is when it has a very large group of people that all say the same thing about it. It raises my expectations a lot higher than what I would think they would be, so obviously I'm going to critique it a bit harder because of how people are talking about it. Now, I'm not doing this because I'm trying to be different or anything. I just have my own opinions that go against the norm sometime. There are some things that I find very popular that I also enjoy, and there are some things that are very popular that I don't enjoy. It's a very common thing. Not everyone has to like the same exact thing. And it may just be with me potentially getting older or something. Maybe it's just because I have a bit of a bias towards stuff, but that's just the reality of things. I will always critique something harder if there's a large following for it. Now, obviously you can make the argument that if I wanted to, I can lower the difficulty if it was a skill issue, so that way I can just breeze through the story and get things over with, so that way I don't have to worry about anything, which I could do, but the only thing is, I prefer having the nice balance of both. So the gameplay and the combat, as well as the story. I would rather play the game the way it was intended, rather than just have one or the other. But like I said, none of them clicked with me. So that's why I dropped the game after a few hours. And I'm not gonna force myself to play something that I don't enjoy. I think I'd be putting myself through more pain and suffering than the characters if I decided to force myself to play probably 30 plus hours of a game that I'm not already enjoying. Even though I'm going against the amount of people who like this game, I just couldn't find myself liking it. And there's probably other people who agree with me in that regard, and that's perfectly fine. Having a differing opinion from the norm is a very natural and a very healthy thing. It offers differing perspectives and it helps identify the person you are and the kind of taste that you have. And perfection is very subjective. I am a very strong believer that there is no such thing in this world as perfect. Everything will always have its flaws. There will always be something that people disagree with. So it's not something that can be physically manifested. So for me, obviously, this game is not a masterpiece for me. In the technical sense, where it comes down to the design and the team that worked on it, it is without a doubt a very well crafted masterpiece of a game. But like I said, it's not for everyone. So that's why I'm gonna stop playing it. That's just my take. There's obviously other people who would disagree with me, and I'm perfectly fine with that. So let me know what y'all think. That's it for me. Thank you for watching. Hope y'all enjoyed, and I'll talk to y'all later. See ya.